Hello, everyone. So today I have Madalyn from Small Seeds, and we're going to be talking about all different types of things as it pertains to foraging. We're going to talk about some safety, some tools, also sustainability, and then we're going to talk about some wild edible medicinal plants and some of their uses and benefits. And we're also going to show some of the plants that we have. So this will be a really fun discussion today. So Madalyn of Small Seeds. She is in Southeastern Pennsylvania.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes, so they have a small farm in Southeastern Pennsylvania. She also has her channel, which is called Small Seeds, where she shows foraging and all kinds of wild edible plants and plant ID, and even some ways that you can use them, some recipes. I really enjoy her videos, and I know that you all will too. So in the description, I do have her information linked. So how are you today, Madalyn?
I'm good. A little nervous again, but I am ready to have our chat. And thank you for that wonderful introduction. So, yeah, we are in the process of building a small-scale farm. Before, when we really didn't have a space to grow gardens, foraging and wildcrafting and just trying to identify all of the wonderful plants that we had around us was really a passion for me and a great way to get into this whole wonderful world of plants and edibility and medicinal properties. So if you are somebody watching this who you want to be a gardener or you want to make your own herbal remedies, but you don't have the space to grow, I highly recommend just starting to observe the plants you have growing around you and seeing what you can do and utilizing them. So, yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so let's go ahead and start talking about some safety and some tools that you'll need when you're first starting on your foraging journey.
Yes, so with tools, I've just kind of been using garden tools when I go out there. Now, if I'm picking leaves or berries, that's always so simple. Just hand pick them. What I'll do is I'll bring like a Tupperware container and put it in a backpack if I'm out walking in the forest trying to pick berries or leaves. If I'm out in one of the fields, I'll bring a nice pretty basket like the one you had in the picture and just harvest away. Now, if you are planning on harvesting roots, it's probably useful to bring a little hand trowel, I think that's what they're called, or a little hand shovel for digging. If you are going to be digging out some bigger roots and you do have permission to harvest from that area, you might need a shovel for certain plants, but for the most part, a little hand shovel like this works out when you're digging up roots. If you are going to harvest some like twigs, you bring some, I have some pruners that I'll bring out there. And then this one I thought was funny. It's a little tiny pruner and it's fluorescent. It says easy to spot, tools you'll never lose. And I saw this, I was like, challenge accepted, because I tend to lose a lot of my tools. But for certain plants, like for example, here we have spice bush. And with that plant, all above ground parts of the plant are edible and used as a spice. And in the winter or early spring, sometimes people will harvest the twigs. So bringing something like that with you would be really helpful. And also, you know, I'm talking about pretty much using gardening tools. So when you are out there and you're harvesting from wild areas, try to treat the plants like they're plants in your garden. You know, like if you're making a cut, try to make it at that 45-degree angle so that water can kind of run off of it and you're not causing the plant to start to rot and have water build up. Just kind of things like that. If you plan on harvesting plants that may cause contact dermatitis, for example, stinging nettle, it's probably a good idea to be wearing gloves. And I think that's all I can really think about when it comes to tools.
Well, those are some wonderful tips. And I do a lot of things the same exact way that you do it. So it's just wonderful to, to hear that. I do have a few other things that I wanted to mention. When I go out, I always make sure it doesn't matter what time of the year it is. I just don't want to have to worry about if it's too hot. I don't want to have to worry about mosquitoes or bugs crawling on me. So I always wear a long sleeve. If it's a white t-shirt, I wear a long sleeve, and I wear long sleeve. I wear long leggings, and I always do it with pockets. So that way I can just have like my phone and some of the other things I'm going to talk about just on there. And I also like to have these little, let me just show real quickly, like these little mesh produce kind of bags. These are meant to be reused for produce, but I like them because I can just put herbs in there, and then you can tighten it up. And you can, if you wear jeans or so, you can go ahead and actually loop this onto your pocket. So I really do like that. And there's all different sizes. So you could just, bring it and then, bring them home, wash them, and wash this as well and reuse it. So I really do like that. And then also I wanted to talk about, especially if, you are a woman, I always go with another person, but if you don't, I think it's always good to have something for safety. And so I just like to bring like a little utility knife. It doesn't have to be, pink or anything like that, but it's just really easy if you need to. And it can also help you with cutting the plants as well. So that's what I like to do there. It's, it's just very easy and simple and really quick. And you never know if you might need it in a pinch or so. And so I have that as well. And another option, hopefully, I don't have people that are too, squeamish about it. But this is actually, it looks like, and it does have a working flashlight like this, sorry. But also it is a taser or a stun gun. And so it can it has a safety on it. So you can put on and then you press the button. So it actually has the safety. It's two different safeties, but I like it because one, it does have, the flashlight too, which is not very much light, but it could be useful. And then you have this as well. And you can have this again, you can have this, going around something or on a loop. And then I have like a little case for it too. So I just like having those little things. It makes you just feel a little bit, safer because you don't know if other people might be out there, while you're out in the woods or whatever. Where I live, there's not usually that many people. And so, if something happens, it might be a long time before someone else comes. And also animals or something like that. You don't know what situation you might be in. So it might make you feel a little bit better. Also, pepper spray might be another good option to have too. And just have it with, something easy and simple. Maybe like, depending where you live too, like a bear spray might be more specific too.
Yeah, we have coyotes really bad in our area, and so that's definitely something to consider. I try not to be out there past sunset, but that is definitely some great tips for safety. And what you said about wearing the long clothes is also great. Like if it's not too hot, definitely, like if you're going to be out in brambles, lots of thorns, I prefer to wear jeans. There was this one time I went out in mid-July. It was so hot and I tend to overheat really quickly. So I just had some shorts on and I'm out there like walking across these logs trying to pick these wild blackberries. And I fell into this big patch of brambles and just got all cut up. Yeah. So long clothes. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah. And with you saying that too, it's also really good to have some like first aid accessories too. So another thing that I do bring, and it's probably up here. Oh, actually, I do have Echinacea Tincture. And I like to take this because it's also known as snake root. And so I think that it is good, like, you never know if you're going to be bit, and to put this on the wound. And then while you're trying to go, to get help or whatever, it's just something that may be able to help you because it's antiseptic. And so it can really help in that way. So I think that's a good other plant to have. And also, I try not to carry too many things. But also, if you do want to bring something, like we're going to talk later about it, but like a yarrow powder might also be good too. Depending on where you live, you might not be able to find yarrow or whatever. And so it's good to have that for if you do have a bleeding wound. So we'll talk more about it. I don't want to jump ahead. But I think those might be some other good things to incorporate. Do you have any other things you want to add that you might be thinking of?
Well, you brought up snake bites, and in our area we have copperheads, which are very venomous snakes. And if you do even if you're not foraging, like if you plan to go out in your woods, it's really important to know if you do have venomous snakes in your area and learn how to identify them. So that way,
Right.
if you do get bit by a snake, you'll know that, oh my gosh, that's a copperhead or that's a venomous snake. And then you'll be able to call 911 and let them know that I was bit by a venomous snake, and they'll be able to bring the helicopters and the anti-venom or whatever you really need for that situation. So knowing what the snake looks like, if that's a possible danger in your area, is
Right.
probably really important too.
Yeah, and I love that you put out that you should have some type of prior knowledge too, the plants and even what might be, lurking in the woods or whatever. And so if you can, there are, you can sometimes go with groups first, even. So that might be a good first thing to do to get acclimated and know. Because it is really different, I think, than, like, of course, in our backyards or whatever, and like you said, there's all types of
Mhm.
trees and stuff everywhere. It's not even like, even though they have passages or hiking trails, it still is really much different. It can be narrow, or trees can fall down. So you really have to be aware of your surroundings and be really observant too. So anything that you know beforehand can be
Yeah,
really
absolutely.
helpful. We could take a
Mhm.
moment and just say hi to some of the people that are here. We have G Mama Grows.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna check in on the chat.
So hello to G
Hey.
Mama. Hello to Carrie.
Oh, hi, Carrie.
Is that your friend? Is that someone you've seen on your
That's
channel?
my
Carrie?
yeah, it's like I always I always say my sister-in-law, but it's my
Oh,
brother-in-law's wife. But I mean, I don't know the technical term for that. But hey, Carrie.
yeah. Well, hey. My first time seeing you. And Presley, thank you for joining. All right, so let's go ahead. And I'm sorry for the background noise that I have, so I'll mute myself when you're speaking. All right, so let's go into the next thing we wanted to talk about. I think we kind of hit on it, but were there any specific tips that you wanted to mention, or did we cover
Well,
all
there
of
are
that?
a lot of tips when it comes to like safety when foraging. I'll try to just kind of sum it up quickly. But of course, no matter what, always have that 100% positive plant identification. Even if there's the slightest shred of doubt that you don't know exactly what it is, do not eat it. Make sure that you know. And it's always good to know about um, toxic lookalikes. Uh, it's also important to know the area that you're foraging in. You don't want to be picking plants right on the edge of the road because of the vehicle runoff going into the soil, and the plants uh, sometimes absorb that. And then if you're in like, just make sure you know the area very well. If it's being sprayed with herbicides or pesticides, if it's kind of like a wasteland, if there's a bunch of heavy metals in the soil, plants do also pick them up through their roots. Also, really, like if you see a plant, you have that 100% positive identification, you're ready to harvest it, check your area because you could have poison ivy growing right around the plant. Um, for me, we have poison ivy, poison oak. I think we even have poison sumac in our area. So it's like really important to observe not only know the area before going, but also observe the other plants growing around it. Even if you have stinging nettle and you walk through a patch of stinging nettle, like that's not going to be fun for you. And even though it might not be as bad as poison ivy, it could be very uncomfortable. But yeah, just observe your location, make sure you have that 100% positive plant identification. Also, knowing what parts of the plant to use is super important. And if there's a certain time of year where it's best to harvest it, with some plants, As they mature, they get more concentrated in certain plant compounds that might be toxic in high amounts. With some plants, they could have a certain plant compound in it that is toxic unless you cook it or prepare it a certain way. Or you could have a plant that has a poisonous root. You're harvesting the leaves, but you don't know that, and then you go to harvest the whole plant or something. Just know what parts of the plant you are supposed to be harvesting, if there's a specific time, and if they do have a toxic compound in them that you need to cook out or something. So, yeah. Oh,
I'm still here. Sorry.
oh, okay.
Yes, I'm sorry about that. Okay, we have a question.
No, that's all right.
She says, do you all carry books when foraging?
So, I used to. I don't really anymore, but I got some books here. These are field guides. There's the Peterson's field guide for wild edible plants. This one is specific to Central and North America. And then there's a field guide, a Peterson's field guide, also for medicinal plants. Now, when I first started, one of my favorite things to do was just go on walks and look around and really pay attention to the small details of plants, the leaf shape, the leaf margins, the flowers and the colors and the veins, and just those really small details. And then I kind of go home and I'd flip through my book and see if there's anything that I recognize. And if I felt like there were plants that I recognized, then I'd go and bring it out with me, and I'd sit there and I'd really compare and read about the different ways to identify. And with a book like this, it also includes toxic lookalikes. I don't know if you can, the lighting in here is a little bad, but it includes toxic lookalikes, which is also really helpful so that you can kind of differentiate between the plant that you want to harvest and a possible toxic lookalike. So I definitely recommend a field guide or bringing it on walks with you. And I know there are plant identification apps now. That's not something that I've really gotten into, but I've heard good things, so that might be something to consider as well.
Oh, thank you for those tips. So we do have Brampton Gardner. She says it's called Google Lens. Have you heard of Google Lens?
I'm guessing maybe that's one of those
ID
plant
maybe?
identification apps. I'm not
Yeah.
sure. I haven't heard of it, but it sounds like is that a plant identification
I'm not
app?
sure. I was thinking maybe you might know, maybe two heads together. But that's probably what it is. She says, "Hello, beautiful ladies," and thank you.
Hi.
And then we also have, where can you find the produce bags? And actually, I think I probably found those at like a discount store. So if you go to your local grocery store and their kitchen kind of cookware aisle, maybe where they have some cheesecloth, they do tend to have like some little accessories, and you might be able to find it there. I think I have seen some of those there because places like Sprouts that really are about, trying to cut down waste, and they try to be a little bit better. They do have those where you can buy them as well. But you can also get them on Amazon. I've seen different types, and I bought some for the garden to protect like fruit. And you can use those as well too.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what was the books that you said you have again?
So these ones are the Peterson field guides.
Yeah, I just recently got myself one. I got this one. This is for Eastern and Central North America.
Yeah, that's the newer. I can't remember the exact.
I just recently got this
updated version.
Yeah, I just recently got this one, and I think that it's really great. And the other one that I had before this was this one here. It's edible wild plants. And this one is just for North America.
I think I have that one too.
Yeah, so at least get, for North America, if that's where you live, or, wherever you live, and then try to get one more specific too. But this book, it does also show on the map where the different plants are. So you could see if they would even be, around you as well.
Nice.
Ooh, let me show it a little bit more. Yeah, so it does go through the plants and show you the little map there. So that's when you can know if you can even really find it. And so I think that that's helpful too. And I don't like, I've brought this like in the car, but I just don't want to carry, one of these books, even this one that it is smaller. But, these books can be heavy and you have enough to worry about, just trying to make sure, looking at the plants and looking at your surroundings and the sounds and all that. So it's with good intentions, but I definitely think that if that makes you feel comfortable, then you can definitely take it with you. And maybe if you could find even a smaller book, or maybe take a few plants that you want to actually look at and maybe print out pictures or something that you want to look for. That might also be helpful too. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I feel like when I first started, it kind of like did it in steps, and I would bring the book with me, and that was before I would really start harvesting them, so it would be like kind of just like a little identification walk, and then you can kind of take a separate foraging walk if you're close enough where you can do something like that. But yeah, it can be a little bit much to try to lug around this with your tools and your harvesting materials. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so, yeah, trying to be as light as possible. Definitely. So I think definitely at least take pictures if you can. Like if you do bring your phone, you could take pictures. Or if you wanted to, you could like with those little produce bags, you can take a little bit, of the plant and, bring it home and do, whatever to make sure you have the right plant and then use it that way too. So I guess that can segue, if you don't have any other comments on that, we can segue into the next topic. Oh, what's that? Ooh.
Yeah, actually, when you were showing me the book, just real quick, in this field guide, they do show like some different leaf shapes, different like the botanical terms for different parts of the plant, and kind of acquainting yourself with the botanical terms and leaf shapes will really aid you when you are identifying. For me, I kind of, in the beginning, I didn't focus too much on the terms. It was more like really just zoning in on the details and comparing. But when you do start kind of building upon that knowledge, it does make the whole identification process a lot easier. But that's all I had to say. So let's get to sustainability.
I have a little noise in the background, but yeah, we can start with some things that you want to talk about as it relates to sustainability first.
Okay. Yeah. Do I have background noise going on too, or?
No, not that I hear.
Okay. All right. Good. Yeah. So
if you don't mind. Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Oh,
no,
okay.
I was going to say that also was mentioned the Wild Edibles book, and I do have that book. Do you know that book is by Sergey Batenko? I think is how you say his last name. Yes, I actually have that book, and I do like that one as well. And the pictures are really great, really up close photos. It does talk about a fewer list of plants, but I think that's a good one too. But okay. So, all right, so we can talk about sustainability now, if you're ready.
Okay, yeah. So sustainability obviously should be a very important aspect of foraging. If this is something that you are interested, we want to make sure that we're keeping our local environments. Like the example I used before, like you treat it like it is a garden, like your garden. It's nature's garden. There are so many living beings that are a part of this ecosystem that might be dependent on a certain plant that you're looking for too. So it's really important to think of it as a whole, the ecosystem as a whole, and try not to take more than you need, especially when it comes to native plants. It's so important to make sure that we are practicing good methods. Like for me, when I am out in the forest, I really focus more on invasives because I feel like with certain invasive plants, I can just go crazy with it a little bit. I can harvest as much as I want, because I feel like I am helping those native plants that the invasive plants might be choking out or taking over their areas, you know. Now, not to say that invasive plants don't also serve a function in the ecosystem sometimes too. Like, for example, where we are, we have so many invasive plants that are from Japan, and a lot of them were brought over for erosion control and to make hedgerows and stuff like that. And a lot of them are red berries, I've noticed. We have Japanese barberry, Japanese wineberry, Japanese multiflora rose, which produces the rose hips. And then we also have autumn olive. Now, all of those plants are super invasive, but they also produce really, some of them are really tasty berries, and then also just very like highly medicinal. So I feel like I kind of lost my track a little bit, but I'm just going to keep going with it. So those berries, they are eaten by some of the local wildlife. Now, the only problem is it's like when the birds are eating all the autumn olives off the tree, they're spreading the seed. So I suggest if you are eating something like autumn olive, eat the seeds too, because with those ones, the seeds are edible. Don't just spit them out because you're going around propagating an invasive plant that's already taking over an area. So yeah, find out about like certain plants if they are very invasive and kind of wreaking a little havoc on your local ecosystem. Harvest them and try not to propagate them while you're harvesting them. For example, I'll use another invasive example. Garlic mustard is extremely invasive. It takes over parts of forests, and there's like a compound in the roots that actually leach into the soil, and it inhibits the growth of the mycorrhizal fungi, which is the fungal network that the trees use to communicate with each other and exchange nutrients. It's so important. And then you have garlic mustard in there just kind of inhibiting that whole process. So when you are foraging something like garlic mustard, make sure to take the whole plant. And even if you're not going to use the whole plant, you're just going to use the leaves or the flowers or something, you know, when you get home, harvest those and then compost the rest of the plant and make sure that you kill it. Also, make sure that if you are taking it, you're not spreading the seed, of course. But I feel like I've talked enough about invasives. Let's talk about the native plants now. So I figured we could use the example of Goldenseal because that was one that you brought up in one of your last live chats. And Goldenseal, I can't remember if the correct term is endangered or yeah, let's just go with endangered. Do you know what the
Yes, I would say it's at risk. I think is the
at
word that we
risk?
see,
Yes,
at risk.
thank
Yeah.
you for that. So Goldenseal is one that is highly beneficial. You know, it's usually harvested for the roots. But so for me, it's like I just won't harvest Goldenseal unless I come across a large patch. But there is a way to harvest it where you're putting part of the roots, they're like rhizomes, and they kind of remind me a little of turmeric. You know, they have that bright yellow orange color to them, and they're harvested. Okay, so wait, I'm getting ahead of myself. So when you harvest them, it's a good practice to take some of the smaller rhizomes and put back the largest one in the ground. Make sure you plant it back nicely, you know, like it's in your own garden. And then that way, that plant that you harvested from will be able to keep growing. And next year, it'll be a nice Goldenseal plant again. Now, the specific plant constituent within Goldenseal is that the reason it's sought after is for berberine. And berberine is what gives it that yellow orange color. It has a lot of antibiotic antibacterial potential, and there have been a good amount of studies on it showing this. So for me, instead of really seeking out the Goldenseal, I'll go for Barberry or something. And Barberry contains this same constituent, berberine, inside of its own roots and in its twigs. You can kind of like peel the twigs back a little bit and you'll see that golden yellow color. So Barberry is one of those super invasive plants that I had mentioned before. And it is like, it's been used as a landscape plant in Pennsylvania. And last year it was just said like, it's illegal to use it in landscaping now because it is spread all throughout our forests around here. It creates habitat for the deer ticks that carry Lyme's disease. So all around, it's just like not a great plant for our forests or for us. And so that's why I'm like, let's go for the Barberry. Let's leave the Goldenseal for a little bit, you know, and go for the Barberry because it does have the berberine and then it has edible berries as well. Now the berries don't taste the greatest, but they are full of beta carotene and lycopene and really good antioxidants. And there has been actually a lot of studies done with the berries for all types of different health benefits as well. So I feel like I kind of got a little sidetracked talking about sustainability, but I think that's about all that I had to say.
Oh, okay. Well, you definitely know you could talk forever about it because we're just listening because you have so much knowledge and you're really doing some good work, you know, making sure that while we bring awareness to the plants, that we also bring awareness to being sustainable. And so I did want to talk a little bit. I want to share a slide because I just recently, and this is what I did, I think on Earth Day, there's an organization called United Plant Savers. And so they send out lists of all different rankings of plants. And so these were some of the ones that were under the at risk. So I think there's at risk, and then there's some that, and I should have had it out with me, but then there's some that they're taking a closer look at and like investigating. And so these are, and as you said, Goldenseal's on the list. And here are some of the others as well. Like Echinacea has gotten a lot of popularity, but a lot of people don't know that it is an at-risk plant. And then some others are on here as well. We got a few comments. Red berries are scary, especially if you don't know what you're looking for. So there was a study that said like about, I want to say maybe, well, more than likely, it's more likely if you have a darker colored berry that it would be edible than a red berry. Have you found that to be true when you were going out foraging as well?
So the red berries around here that aren't edible, the ones that come to mind is like honeysuckle. And then there's this, I can't remember the exact name. But for me, like, I try not to get scared when I see a certain berry. You know, we have so many resources nowadays where we can find that positive plant identification. And the reason I use the example of the red berries is because we just have so many of them around here that are super invasive, but also edible and medicinal. Yeah, I've also heard it for like white berries is a big one too, where plants with white berries most of the time are poisonous or just not edible. But to be honest, I haven't heard too much or looked into it too much, at least about the red berries. So that's something I'll definitely have to look into a bit more. So thank you for that. Oh, hi, Ever Washington. I don't know if my audio cut out. I can't hear you.
No, actually, it's me. I put myself on mute and I forgot to take myself off. So yeah, he's Ever Washington said Oregon grape has berberine in it as well. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah. And I think I was going to say something, but I think I lost my train of thought there. Do you have any more, any other things that you want to add or mention?
Yeah, so we previously lived in West Virginia, and in West Virginia and like Appalachia, American ginseng harvesting of that was a really big thing because it makes big money, like it's a very expensive medicinal herb harvesting ginseng root. And because of that, because people were able to make so much money off of it, that's why it ended up on this list. And also from deer grazing it too, like at least where we live, we have an overpopulation of deer, and they do also contribute to um, putting some of these plants on this list. But with American ginseng, like Goldenseal, there's a specific way that you can harvest it where you are leaving a part of the root. I can't remember, and also it has to have a certain amount of
The
either
notches, and
rings.
then
Yeah,
maybe
it
not
has.
the word notches, but yeah,
Yeah, like you can
you have to have
tell the
all of
age of
that.
the
Yeah.
plant by the certain. I don't know
But
what to
how many
call
years,
it.
each of the
Segment.
years that it's actually been in the ground, yeah. And so yeah,
Yeah.
like you said, they actually need that because that makes it more
Mhm.
valuable. And so
Yeah, absolutely. So it's like there are laws in place now. I don't know about for every state that ginseng grows in, but I know at least for West Virginia, there's a certain time that you're allowed to harvest it. You cannot harvest plants that are under a certain age. Like you have to check to see the segments on the root, and if it's under a certain age, you have to put it back. And then also for they do teach to harvest.
oh, are you still there?
Now I'd have to reread on that. I hope I'm not giving
Oh, okay.
anybody wrong.
Can you repeat that last segment? It's freezing. It's freezing now, but it froze for a second.
Okay, with American ginseng, where did it leave off? Like we were talking about the. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I
Okay.
don't. I didn't hear the first part, but then you said you weren't sure. I think I heard after West Virginia. I think is where we cut off.
Okay, I think we're back up now. Yeah, well, with ginseng, I was just saying like there are laws now for harvesting it, at least in West Virginia, where there's a certain time that you are allowed to harvest it during the year, and they also teach like good practices for sustainably harvesting it. If there's a plant that is under a certain amount of years old, that you're not allowed to harvest it, and that you're supposed to leave a part of the root segment and replant it so the plant can
Right.
repropagate itself. So
Right. So let's see. I want to see what I might have missed. Okay, Amuna said, I love the information that both of you are giving. We have so many edible berries since spring sprung. My backyard here in Louisiana, we have many dewberries that are delicious. And I remember what I wanted to talk about is whenever you're harvesting plants, and even if you believe that it is a certain plant, you can always just take precautions. And so one thing you can do is, like take one of the berries and just crush it a little bit to get a little bit of the juice on your skin, and just wait a little bit to see, because if it is poisonous, then it can give you a rash or something. And then after that, you can also do the same thing on your lip. And once you do that, if you wait maybe 15 minutes, nothing happens, then you can maybe try one. And those are just little things that just a little precaution. But that is again after you've already identified the plant as well.
yeah, and to add on to that, I think we had mentioned this in the first live stream that we did before, and somebody said, "Oh, it's like with babies when you're trying to introduce new foods to a young child or an infant, even not infant, but you know what I mean."
Yeah.
You only give them a small amount, and you make sure that you just give them that one at a certain time. So that way, if there is some sort of reaction, you'll know that it was that plant. And of course, that's after you have your positive ID. And and also just a little thing, like a precaution, like there are plants that people are very allergic to, certain plants, and then there are some plants that they're not really, the allergies aren't very well known, but there might be a specific person who does have a reaction to it. So no matter what, like there's always a possibility with any type of plant that you specifically as an individual could have a reaction to. So playing it safe, small amounts, and then testing it out, like you were saying, is always a good practice. And then if you know, like it's also important to know the scientific name of a plant, so that way you can know what family it is in. You know, some people who have hay fever, they should really stay away from plants that are in the daisy family, I believe it is, like the Asteraceae family. You might be more prone to having an allergic reaction to a certain plant because you are allergic to a plant within the same genus or family. So.
Right. Yes. Awesome. So we have a question. Amuna says, any advice on how to keep flowers from molding when storing them? So she had experience with white clover and had them mold. Do you have any thoughts you want to share, or?
What was that? I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm saying, do you have any? Oh, she wanted to know if we have any tips.
Oh yeah. So when you are like, so what I use, I'm not going to pull it out because it's in a whole pile of clutter, but I use an herb drying rack, and it has multiple tiers. And what I'll do when I bring it home is or when I bring herbs home that I've harvested, I'll put them in, and you kind of just make sure that there's air is able to really flow through all of them. You don't want to have them layered on top of each other. Kind of make sure there's a little space in between each flower bud. You're specifically talking about white clover. So what I would do is just make sure that you dry them out and there's good air circulation. Now, if you're talking about using them fresh, because that's something that you want to use fresh, then I suggest trying to use it as quickly as possible. When you rinse them off, maybe like pat them dry and then kind of keep them in a towel to absorb any extra moisture, and then put it in the refrigerator even. I've had good luck with a lot of wild flowers that I harvest, doing that and keeping them in the refrigerator. That also helps to kind of slow down any mold from growing. And of course, you know, if it gets moldy, you just don't eat it. But yeah, I really prefer drying out a lot of herbs if I'm not going to use them right away fresh.
Right. And like, as you said, it's all about making sure that it is 100% dry before you store it. Yeah. Okay. So I don't think we have any more questions. So we can go ahead and start talking about some of our herbs now.
All right.
Let me, excuse me. And I'm going to have to go all the way to the front. Okay. So the first herb that we were going to talk about is actually clover. And so specifically more red clover. But I have some pictures here from the garden, and we both have some clover, I believe, to show as well some of this wonderful plant. Yeah. So do you want to start?
Sure. Is your clover blooming right now? Because I know you guys are a little ahead of us with the climate.
Yes.
We were mentioning that.
Yes. Mine is, well, actually, it's so a right
now.
Oops. Go ahead. Oh no! I was just going to say a lot of time it's already past its prime, actually. So this is the white, but it does still have some of the pinkish on it. You can see there. Oops. Okay. Sorry, it's always so hard to do it opposite. And I do have a little bit of the leaves, but yours might look better. Mine is wilting quickly, so it's hard for me to show here.
Oh yeah, I tried to stick it in water, So yeah, right now our red clover is just starting.
Yeah, yours.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no. No. I'm sorry. No, it's all right. So right now it's just starting to kind of open up and bud a little bit, but really, like, you want the flowers right when they've really opened up. Now the leaves are edible too. You can put these into salads. A good way to identify clovers is, it has like a little kind of almost oval or teardrop shaped leaves, and there are 3 leaves on each, or 3 leaflets on each leaf. That's called a trifoliate leaf when you have the 3 like that. Now, some clover is often confused with wood sorrel when they're not in bloom. And one good way to kind of tell them apart is that the wood sorrel has little heart-shaped leaves, and the clover has more of a teardrop-shaped leaf. Wood sorrel is also another edible, but it's one that you don't want to eat too much of because it contains a lot of oxalates. So people who are more prone to kidney stones or have certain health conditions might want to ease up on the wood sorrel. But we're talking about clover, so I'm going to try not to get off track. So with clover, now I feel like with red clover, there is a good amount of precaution that you want to take with it. For example, if you are pregnant, breastfeeding, if you have some type of cancer where like an estrogen, you don't want to be taking in estrogen because it can affect certain cancers like breast cancer and make them worse. Now, clover contains isoflavones. I always feel like I say it, isoflavones, and they are basically they're very similar to the estrogen that we produce. So with it, because of that, clover is thought to be very good for a lot of women's issues like menstrual cramps and menopause and things. And I guess when it comes to the science, the evidence is kind of inconclusive with that. But there are personal testimonies of people using red clover and it really being helpful. And I saw on your list you did have that it's diuretic. It's used for certain lung conditions as an expectorant. What else estrogenic, you have that on there. Nutritive, yes, it's very nutritious. So for me, red clover isn't one that I really use a lot of medicinally. Sometimes I will make an iced tea, if I have some cramps or something, and see if it helps. But this is one that I really like to just add into salads more and like occasionally nibble on it. I feel like I'm missing. I have some notes.
I have some of the blossoms here that are dried.
Okay, nice. Yeah, what do you use red clover for?
Actually, I like to use it for for moistening, but for the throat as well.
Okay.
Because it does have like expectorant properties, so I really like to use it. And also because it does have like a little bit more of a sweetness, I like to add it in those kind of blends where a little bit of sweetness or a little bit of moisture is really good for like the throat. So I used it in like for my kids because it is one of those more safe herbs. As well. I did want to point out that the white clover and red clover, even the flowers are different, but the leaves are a little bit different too. So what I had pictures of is, let me show it here. The leaves look a little bit different here. And it is in the pea family as well. A lot of the plants that are in the pea family do have that, it has the phytoestrogens, as you were talking about. So I wanted to show a better picture of some of the leaves, but it's very hard to show. That's a little bit, but it's very hard to show. But like you said, it does mostly have that 3 leaflets as well. So, and that's where the lucky 4-leaf clover comes from.
Yeah, I usually find those on the white clover, and with white clover, just from observation, the leaves are usually smaller. And of course, that kind of depends on where it's growing and the soil conditions and the amount of sunlight. Red clover leaves usually seem to be bigger. Also, though, like I feel like with the white clover, their leaves kind of form like a dense mat along the ground, and then they kind of shoot their little flower stalks up. But with clover, it's like once they start taking off, it's like they're more upright, and I think they grow up to 3 or 4 feet. I'm not sure if that's the exact height, but yeah.
And it grows like a ground cover almost. The white clover. And so it's very easy to spot because it is so dark. The leaves are so dark green too, and it really stands out from everything else. And then of course, once the flowers are there, also, if I can show it a little closer to focus. Yeah. And it does have some pictures, but
too. I'm so sorry. What were you saying?
I still have your slide up. So once you get to your pictures.
Okay, yeah, I think they're kind of separated strangely. But before that, real quick, before I forget, you were saying that they're in the pea family. They're a legume. So they're used as cover crops often because, like plants in that pea family are known to be nitrogen fixing. So they are really great as a cover crop. And I feel like, I don't know if this is exactly why, but I feel like that deep green color does come from the fact that they're able to pull, or actually the plant, it's like there's a connection with there's like these little colonies of bacteria in their roots. And those colonies, they live on the roots, and they're able to pull nitrogen out of the air into the soil. So it's a great one to have if you are a farmer or gardener. It's also one that's often used for livestock. But yeah, let me pull up those pictures now.
Okay. And Ever Washington said that they heard it's a pseudoestrogen. Yeah, it's a phytoestrogens is what they're called, where it's like as you explained earlier.
Yeah, very similar to the estrogen that we produce for sure. And so screen share, here we go. Okay. Can you see it, or is it like... I don't know what I'm doing. Did I mess everything up? Oh wait, I think you're muted.
Here I go again. I'm sorry. But the screen went. The whole screen went. It looked like you had Yarrow from earlier.
So here's Yarrow. I'm gonna have to really go through everything.
So she said white clover and wood sorrel grows in my backyard. Very plentiful. Thank you for the tips on stirring also. Yeah.
So here's the red clover. Might be... I feel like that one's a little blurry, but you can really see that flower in there.
It's not up there just yet. Oh, she says, my kids are watching it live with me, and they're very excited to hear both of you speak of white clover. They love it. That's their favorite flower to pick when it's outside. Yeah, I think they're really beautiful too.
I'm happy to hear that. Hi. Okay. If I can't get this in the next few seconds,
take your time. It's perfectly fine.
So I'm doing the window. Oh yeah, for some reason it's not. Oh, Chrome tab. There we go. Come on. Okay. So
did the red clover? I don't see it yet. The red clover that you have, is that just it's grown wild, or did you plant your red clover?
Oh, it's growing wild. Yeah. It starts creeping into the gardens actually. More so the white clover though. But I found the red clover kind of grows really close to our house, and so that's always nice. I could just go out there and pick a little bit for some tea or throw it on some salads. But yeah, I'm not even going to bother. I feel like I'm just slowing everything down.
It's fine. We can keep working on it while we bring up the next one. That is Yarrow.
Okay.
Let me share the screen again. So yeah, we both have yarrow, which is really going to be good to show the different stages because we are in two different zones. Let's see what you have first.
Yes.
Okay.
So mine is like the red clover, just about to start flowering. And I'm really excited about that because I love yarrow. I don't know, you can kind of see up close, but when I was first really looking at yarrow up close, I noticed there's this really like woolly fuzz that kind of is more towards the top of the stem, right around the flower bud, and I thought it was a pest, and I was like, oh my gosh, what's going on with my yarrow? But that's just a natural part of the plant. It has this little woolly fuzziness. And for yarrow, the scientific name is Achillea Millifolium, and there's like a fun little story behind that. So Achillea comes from the Greek legend of Achilles because yarrow was thought to be used by Achilles on his wounded soldiers in the battlefield. And then millifolium just meaning a lot of leaves, basically, a lot of foliage. But yeah, with these ones, it has these really feathery looking leaves. For me, I really enjoy its scent. It has a very piney scent and flavor to it as well. It's astringent with that piney flavor, so a lot of people don't enjoy it too much. I really like it because I love all things pine, and I find that like when I'm just taking a walk or outside, I'll just nibble on the leaves a little bit, and I feel like it really freshens my breath. You get the astringent, of course, helps to kind of tone the mucous membranes and tissues. So that's also really nice. And it was traditionally used as a mouth rinse or like a throat gargle because of its astringent properties. And like I was saying earlier, it for thousands of years, it has been used as a wound healing herb, and that's what it's best known for. And there have been some studies showing its antibacterial, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant potential, possibly analgesic, so it kind of like helps relieve pain. And then there was also a study that I was reading about with yarrow where they were saying that it promotes the production of the fibroblasts, which are cells that regenerate tissue or connective tissue. So it does help to speed up the wound healing process. So not only is it astringent and helping in that way, like I said, it's the anti-inflammatory. It might help ease pain, helps to kill bacteria and possibly some funguses as well. Now, with herbs like yarrow that are astringent that are used for wound healing because of their astringency, that usually means that they're also really good for digestive issues as well. So like I was saying, so it's tannins within the plant that give it this astringent action. So that, it helps kind of tone tissues and like tightens them a little bit. So internally, yarrow is a really good one for different digestive issues, things like stomach ulcers. I believe there was some studies done with rats where yarrow helped to protect against and heal stomach ulcers in the rats. It's also one that is used for irritable bowel syndrome, bloating. I've used it for bloating before. I mix it with self-heal, make some tea, and it really kind of calms my stomach down. And oh yeah, you got some dried yarrow flower there. So mainly with this one, internal and external wound healing. It's a great one to take internally for teas, adding it into salves, even just a poultice. You have a cut, you have some yarrow, you crush it up, put it on your cut, and it really does aid the wound healing process. Now, precautions with yarrow is that it should not be taken internally when pregnant or breastfeeding, because it is known to actually possibly cause miscarriages. So it's really important to not take this one while pregnant or breastfeeding. It's also used, like red clover, as an emmenagogue. So for menstrual complaints, menopause. I don't know if there's been like studies with that one, but there have been people who used it for that for centuries. And today in modern herbalism, people still use yarrow for issues like that with success. So.
Oh, awesome. I wanted you to show how tall your yarrow is. Once I saw, I said, oh, it's not going to, unless you try to put it back in. Those are flowers that we won't get. So mine is a little bit ahead. I did have some flowers that opened. So these,
nice.
Not quite, but let me show it. Let me show it full screen. Yeah, so this is the plant that I have here. And I would have wanted to have the root, but I didn't want to lose more of the flowers. But yeah, so that's what it looks like. Again, it's kind of drooping now. And they weren't all fully open. So you can kind of see the difference here of opening. Yeah, so that's my yarrow there.
Yeah, and for most of the year, yarrow does kind of grow closer to the ground. Like in your picture there, I feel like it's just starting to kind of send its stalk up. But then, yeah, as it starts to flower, it sends up these stalks, and the leaves towards the bottom are much bigger. And then as you get to the top, they kind of get a little smaller. But with this one, I personally just use the above ground parts, the leaves and the flowers. But I do know of some herbalists using yarrow root as well.
Awesome. Yeah, and it's a very tall plant too, because even this is pretty long, even though I cut it, and yours piece looks longer. Do you have the root on there too? So it does get up.
No, high. I just cut it.
Okay, so
yeah,
too. And yours is still very
got this from. Yeah, I actually got this out of a flower bed. It's funny because the yarrow that we have growing is actually out in the fields. But after harvesting it so much and bringing it to the home, sometimes I kind of like go through it on the porch. I have a big basket and I'll go through it. Some of the seeds, I think, kind of just made their way into our flower bed and planted themselves. So now we've got some really nice yarrow coming up in the flower beds. So
yeah,
wonderful.
So I'm trying to think of anything else I wanted to talk about. Oh, so I did talk about for helping to stop bleeding. And it is a really powerful herb in that way. I like to use a powder, but I also have some Yarrow Infused Oil, and I've used that as well. Like if you have the oil I've used for like little cuts where it just keeps bleeding and I'm trying to get a Band-Aid or so. And so I'll just drop a few drops on there, and it's worked for me wonderfully. So it's just amazing how wonderful that plant is. And as you talked about how it works as an emmenagogue with if you have, delayed menstruation, but then also for helping if you have too much blood. So I just love that about yarrow as a plant. And also I did want to talk about how it's really wonderful for the veins as well. And so it's used as a tonic there. So if you have things like hemorrhoids or more like varicose veins and stuff, it's used a lot of times as well. And I did have a lot of recipes with yarrow in here because I really do like yarrow. One of them was for a fever compress. And so it also is used when you have a really high fever. And I like yarrow just because of the safety of it. And I like to use it with elderflowers, which I find, very plants that have similarities that I really enjoy. All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
We have a question. What are your opinions on the various colors of yarrow? Some herbalists say that only the white version worked. It helped break a fever before. Love the stuff.
Yeah, so I've seen a bunch of different colors of yarrow, and I feel like I've seen it mostly used for landscaping or to put in flower beds, just having that extra color. Now, I'm sure that they also do have some medicinal properties. I'd have to look into it to see if there's been any like comparative. Actually, I do know that there has been comparative studies between certain wild species from different regions of the world. But with yarrow, there is so many different species. And the one that is mainly used, like you were saying, in herbal medicine is the white one, the Achillea Millifolium, and that's the one that I mainly use as well. I'll have to look into that one, Ever Washington.
I have a little bit to add on that. So Rosemary Gladstar, she said that she was saying just the white for a long time. But then she went, I think, to the mountains, and that's their local. There, it's like a pink yarrow, and that's a pink, pinkish color. And they said, like that's what they use, and so it may depend on where, what grows wild in your area might be what the local people find to be useful. But as you said, a lot if it's if it's just for ornamental reasons, I would say probably the white and maybe possibly the pink as well. But some of the other colors probably are more for their ornamental use. Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you both for answering. All right. So I guess that's enough on yarrow. Did you want to show any pictures or anything of yarrow?
I was going to try again, but let's just see. Did you say that you had that kind of like saved to the side, or?
It's gone now, but if you put it up again, it can be saved. Yeah.
Chrome tab. Let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for some reason when I click it,
go ahead. It's really interesting that you said you also just eat some of it raw like that. I would have never thought to use it raw, maybe on a cut or something, but I never really thought just to eat it. Do you feel like the taste is a little bit different? It's probably maybe a little less bitter.
Eating it fresh?
Yes.
Yeah, I feel like it does have some more water in it. I feel like it's just like refreshing, and then when I do use it dried as an herbal tea, I usually mix it with other herbs, but it really does add this like that piney flavor to it, and it just, I don't know exactly how to explain it, but it kind of like is like cooling and like invigorating, like, yeah, yarrow is definitely one of my favorites. I added into one of my favorite salves for wound care and all of that. So can you see this picture, or is it still?
Not yet. Go ahead, but go ahead and take your time. Another thing about yarrow is that it is a really aromatic plant. And so like you talked about, I think would you say for freshen the breath, but also it was used for repellent as well in the garden. And I just actually recently made a hydrosol with it. It was about maybe half yarrow or a little bit more and elderflower. And so it smells really good. I really do enjoy the smell of yarrow as well. And I find that really just like if breaking, cutting the stem, it just really gives you so much of an aroma. It's a really wonderful plant. She says, she's saying thank you for sharing with each other. Oh, okay. It's here now. Perfect.
Okay. Yes. Awesome. So yeah, that's just my little picture of yarrow. That is the white, the Achillea Millifolium, the one most commonly used in herbal medicine today. That is not yarrow. That is yarrow. This is a yarrow that was blooming in the forest, and I feel like we haven't really been mentioning that so far, where like the location, but yarrow is one that you can find. I feel like mostly on the forest's edge, or if there's an opening in the forest, but it also really enjoys full sun. I find it out in the open field that I harvest from. So yeah, those are my yarrow pictures.
Wonderful, wonderful. We have another question. What about using some of these in the home to keep away pests as an essential oil? I don't know what the second word is. Cuparia? I'm not sure.
Maybe like potpourri? Is that like another?
Possibly.
Here, let me see if
I think a potpourri might be nice. Yarrow essential oil. If you want to bring up your slides again, or you have to close it when you come back.
Oh, am I here?
Yeah, you're here, but
Oh, that's what I want.
oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I was done with my Yarrow pictures.
Yes, I do know that yarrow's used for maybe mosquitoes and I think moths or something. But don't quote me. So you have to look a little bit more into it. But if you want to use it, buying yarrow essential oil is more. It's one of the more expensive essential oils. But possibly like making a hydrosol might work in using a little bit of oil in it too, or some other essential oils in it, and spraying it might work as well. Maybe hanging some by the door might help.
Yeah, I can
Have you
see
ever
that.
used it in that way?
I actually do dry out yarrow and use it as like a decorative dried flower. I'd like to mix in a bunch of flowers and dry them out. And yarrow is one that I have used, and it can smell the scent for a good amount of time, but then after it kind of fades with most plants. Um, but yeah, it makes a really pretty addition to like some potpourris or dried flower arrangements, and it holds up well too. And
Right,
I
yeah.
can see it being used as a repellent because it is so aromatic and it is high in the essential oils and everything. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So if that's all we want to share on yarrow, we can go to the next plant.
Yeah.
Lamb's quarter. Do you have any
Okay.
of that to show?
I do. I went around this
Okay.
morning and picked some of these. So, lamb's quarter. Now, for lamb's quarter, I feel like it's another plant that I don't really use it for medicinal purposes, but it is highly nutritious. It's also referred to as wild spinach because you can cook it or use it like spinach, like you would spinach. It has a similar flavor, but it's actually more nutritious than the spinach that you'll buy at stores. It's high in iron, phosphorus, potassium, magnesium, think calcium, vitamins A and C. Um, so with this one, for edibility, it's better to eat the young, tender leaves. You know, you can add them in salads, like I said, or put them into some soups, or just saute them with a little bit of olive oil, some garlic if you like garlic, or salt, or however you would saute spinach, basically. So this is a fun one too because when it comes to identifying, I don't know if it'll show up on the camera, but it has this like mealy white, almost powdery coating on the bottom of the leaves, and from far away it kind of makes it look white or like a little bit shiny. Yeah, I don't think it's really kind of showing up with the lighting, but here is a younger lamb's quarters. Let me see if I do have a picture, and I think I got this screen sharing thing down. So, share screen. Here we go. That's going to be it. So,
Okay, perfect.
okay. So you can kind of see it in this picture. You can kind of see that whitish coating. And, you know,
Can we
the
zoom in
plants.
a little bit?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. I feel like towards the tip of the plant in this photo, you can kind of see that coating more. And when you touch it, it kind of rubs off and you get it on your fingers, and it has this like this mealy type of feel to it, like I was saying. And then with these ones, the leaf margins are toothed around the edges. They have more of a triangular shaped leaf. And this is one that will grow, I believe, up to 6 feet tall. It gets really tall. And when it does, it sets these little flowers that don't even really look like flowers. They're just kind of like little green balls, they look like. And then after that, it goes to seed. Now, all above ground parts are used for food, including the seeds. And they're kind of eaten like you would with quinoa or amaranth. And I believe they are in the same family. lamb's quarter and wild amaranth, and even just quinoa that's cultivated varieties. But one thing with lamb's quarter is, let me see if I can kind of come back here. Oh, how do I stop this share? Stop screen? There we go. So one thing with lamb's quarter is it contains a high amount of oxalates or oxalic acid. So it's one that you kind of want to eat a little less of, like add it into some salads, like a few leaves, you get that nice nutritional boost. Now there is a little debate, because with certain plants that do contain oxalates, or anything like spinach contains oxalates, or green tea, or certain foods that we eat a lot of anyway, that if you eat calcium with a food like this, it kind of counteracts it. And lamb's quarter does have calcium in it, so it may kind of just neutralize all of that oxalates. But if you are somebody who has a health condition where consuming them will harm you, or if you're more prone to kidney stones, it's probably just a good idea to use it very sparingly, or maybe even not at all. But yeah, this is a really highly nutritious wild edible green. Yeah, I think that's all. I do have some little notes I jotted down. I don't know.
All right. While you do that, I do have a plant. My plant is actually smaller than yours, and it's so funny how they really tend to just wilt so quickly. I think you froze for a little bit. Oh no, you're still there. Okay, you were just staying in the same position. Okay. So
I was just really still. Yeah, I pretty much said everything. Oh, nice. Oh, wow, your leaves are
so, but yeah, it's coming through a little bit, but yeah, it is, wilted, but this is what I have so far. All right. Did you want to talk a little bit more about it? But I think you're really good about it.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely this is a nice stage to eat it in, because the greens are still tender. Yeah.
You said let's see. Let's see. I love salad. I've always wondered about wild greens, but not sure on how to identify. Yeah, a lot of the plants that we do have in the backyard, and we also had a part 1, and you can find out about some other plants too that are well edibles as well to add into salads. So I'll make sure that I go ahead and put that link in here in the description once we're done too. And hopefully these videos can let you see, what the herbs look like and make it a little bit easier to identify some of them. So Amuna says, is prickly lettuce safe to eat? Sorry. Oh, no, you're definitely not asking too many questions. Ask any questions that you have. So prickly lettuce, because of, well, I'm sorry. Do you want to?
No, go ahead.
No, it's okay. You can speak.
No, to be honest, I've never really eaten it. So I feel like I don't have a whole lot of experience with prickly lettuce. It was one that I finally came across last year at my where my sister lives. And we do have a lot of different species of wild lettuce where you harvest. We're going to talk about that later, though, right? So go ahead.
Yeah. But yeah, so prickly lettuce is, I believe, really similar in wild lettuce in that you don't eat, large quantities of it, but we will talk about that. But that's my thought on it, that, it is something that you can eat, but in smaller quantities. And yeah, if you want to say anything else about it.
I figure when we get to our
wild lettuce
section.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I got my seeds mixed up and got lamb's quarters everywhere. Where's my quinoa? Yeah, but that's a good one to have. I think that is great to, just add in some smoothies, or like you said, a little bit on salad or so. because it does have so many wonderful nutrients. All right, so
Yeah,
which
and
one? Oh,
if
so
you
that's
like spinach, it does taste a lot like spinach. It's really good. It's tender. It's one of the more mild greens. So yeah, use your lamb's quarters.
yes. Okay, so let's go ahead and share the screen again. Uh, oop, there we go. That's the issue. Next, mullein. Did you
I
have
love
mullein? You
mullein.
said you have some mullein, right?
I do actually. Just the
Perfect.
leaves. I didn't want to take the whole plant out or but I have some of the leaves, the little ears. I always do that with them, but they're really fuzzy and they remind me of like little animal ears or rabbit ears. But mullein is actually, I say this about a lot of plants, but mullein is one of my favorite herbs, and I feel like that's because it was the first one that I ever started working with. When I really got into all of this, like I had mentioned before, when we didn't have a space to grow, I was just kind of looking around at all the plants. I saw mullein, and I didn't remember the name of it. I remember flipping through my books and seeing it, and I was like, I know that plant. Like, I recognize this one. And so I remember falling asleep that day or that night and having a dream about the mullein, and it was like in the dream it was the plant was talking to me. Weird dreams are a little strange sometimes, but it was very significant to me, at least. But the mullein was like saying, like, use me, I can help you. And I thought it was just really cool. So then I went back and found out that it was mullein and really started looking into it. And it was the first one I started harvesting to use for making my own herbal remedies. So mullein is a biennial plant, which means it goes through like a 2-year growing cycle. And in the first year, it'll be these leaves, they'll be growing in what's called a Basil Rosette. So it's kind of just like a formation that looks somewhat like a rose, and it grows low to the ground. And the leaves are kind of like arranged in like it looks like they're like slightly stacked, but still flat to the ground. So in its first year, it does that. And then in its second year, it will send up this really tall stalk, the flowering stalk. And then it'll bloom with these little yellow flowers all over it. So it's usually suggested by herbalists when you're harvesting the leaves to harvest them in their first year, because most of the benefits for the leaves, they'll be more potent at that point, since the plant isn't sending its energy into its flowering stalk. Now, for me, it's like if I find a mullein plant and it's flowering, I'm still going to harvest a little bit of the leaves. But I do try to find first year mullein for the leaf harvest. Now, mullein is a really cool plant because there's so many testimonials from people using it for lung conditions. And that is what it has been traditionally used for respiratory ailments. Now, especially for coughs, for like dry coughs or spasmodic coughs, mullein is known to be an antispasmodic. So, when you have a cough that's like you feel like your ribs are shaking, mullein can really help calm that down. It also is slightly demulcent, and I think that we did talk about a lot of demulcent herbs on our last chat. What this means is that the plant contains more mucilage than other plants. So mucilage is something found in all plants. It's like that gooey, slimy liquid that kind of coats things. When it's on the skin, it's referred to as emollient, and it just really soothes the skin. And then internally, it's demulcent. And what demulcent means, for those of you that don't already know, I know you do, Kadia. I've been keeping up with a lot of your videos, and on your shop, you sell some really good dry cough. I saw that you're selling a dry cough remedy. But for demulcent herbs, they help soothe and calm inflamed mucous membranes internally. And they kind of coat it too, so that it puts this nice, like, almost gooey, cooling coating on an inflamed mucous membrane. And also what that does, it also helps aid in expectoration. It helps to kind of loosen up any mucus that's kind of dry and caught up in the lungs, and kind of helps, like, yeah, loosen it, like I said, and then it helps you to cough it up. Coughing is, we see it as a bad thing, but it is a good thing. It's your body's natural way of trying to get whatever is in your lungs out. So mullein is an amazing herb for the lungs. It's also used for skin conditions as well, inflammatory skin conditions, and the flowers are often used, they're made into an infused oil and used for earaches, both because they're said to have some antibacterial properties, but they're also anti-inflammatory and kind of like will help to relieve that earache, the pain from an earache. Now, it's often combined with garlic too. You'll find mullein garlic eardrops, or mullein garlic oil eardrops. I personally don't like to mess with garlic and oil too much unless it's something I'm preparing to eat right away, because garlic is known to kind of cause, or it causes botulism when you're infusing it in oil if you're not doing it specific ways. So what I'll do is I'll infuse the mullein into oil, and then if I want, I'll add a little bit of like fresh garlic in with it and use it right then and there. And I've seen in my local store, they sell a lot of products. My local health food store, they sell a lot of mullein products. They sell the mullein garlic ear oil, and it's safe for use because of the way that it's processed. So yeah, I feel like I'm missing so much about mullein because it's just such a wonderful plant, but I will stop it there for now.
You really touched on a lot of things. One of the names of mullein is what, lungwort. Do you know any of the other names for? I can remember.
Cowboy toilet paper is one of them that always comes to mind because it's fuzzy, and I guess it was also used as a toilet paper substitute. So that when the toilet paper shortages were happening, I'm like, well, we got some mullein if we need it, guys. So,
and I believe it was also used for when children had like a diaper rash. It was used too, and used like for diapers, because some of the leaves can get kind of big. I think it's called velvet dock or velvet. I can't remember. I think it's velvet dock also because of the fuzziness of it and the softness of it.
I think there's also a name that includes moccasin, because I've heard before that people used to put it in their shoes, and it's fuzzy, so like I can see it helping your feet to stay warm, but it also kind of like has these hairs that might even be a little irritating, causing some more warmth. In some people, it does cause contact dermatitis on the skin because of the little hairs. So yeah, there's a lot of very interesting ways that mullein has been used. And one more thing that just popped into my mind. It's illegal to use mullein for, some people would take the seeds, and because they're so high in saponins, they would take the seeds and throw them into water, and it would kill the fish in the water. So it's illegal to do that, but like that was a way that people would go fishing. They would just throw a bunch of mullein seeds in there, and it would kill the fish because of the high saponin content. Little fun fact.
I don't think you mentioned it, but some people would also use this for smoking. Did you talk about?
I was going to mention that. I didn't know if that was like, but
it's okay. But that's what it is popular for that. So
yeah. So I think my favorite take on it was that if you are somebody who is a smoker, or you have smoked in the past, then mullein it's suggested that, mullein is good to smoke for you. But for someone who's like never smoked or put anything into their lungs, it might not be a good idea. You don't want to be putting like smoke in there. But another thing that you could do is like kind of like light it like almost like an incense, and kind of just like twirl it and like, you know, inhale some of the smoke. But it does have such a direct effect when it is inhaled. And I have seen people, like accounts of people where they've smoked mullein for their asthma, and it's really helped them with their asthma. And of course, I'm not a doctor. We're not doctors. We're not saying to do any of this. Talk to your doctor or a professional herbalist or a professional herbalist. But there are accounts of people really having success with mullein when it comes to certain respiratory issues.
Yeah. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that one of the other reasons why the mullein flowers is actually used is because it actually has like anodyne properties, specifically with the nerves. And so it's thought to kind of soothe the nerves of the ear, you know, when it is, you know, with an infection as well. But, and I don't know if you talked about also being used for the lymphatics as well.
Okay. Yeah, that was one that I wasn't really aware of.
Okay.
With lymphatic function. Wow, I'm good. Yeah, I'll have to look into that.
Probably because of the diuretic properties, and also the mullein root is used for like bladder issues. So more serious diuretic properties do come from the root.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. Plus, you mentioned the nerve pain. Mullein is one that I like to add into a pain relief salve that I mix it with comfrey and arnica, and it really, like, all of those herbs together, I just feel like they're powerhouse when it comes to fighting off my shoulder pain and inflammation. So it is definitely one I've used for pain and inflammation as well. But the lymphatic, I'll have to look into that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And Matthew Wood, he listed as being useful for like if a person has frostbite to take a bath in mullein. So I think that that's really interesting.
Wow.
So yeah,
Okay.
So it's always nice to learn more things about some of these plants, you know, that are very common, because you can always learn something a new use about it. All
Absolutely.
Right. Oh, did you have any photos that you wanted to share before we go? Okay.
Yeah. So, they're not the greatest pictures, but we came across this one mullein patch 2 years ago, and it's there every year because it reseeds itself, and every other year it's flowering because it is a biennial plant. But let's see if I can just. So this is the mullein patch, and they do grow very large. The leaves get to like insane sizes sometimes, and they grow very tall, of course. I remember I couldn't find the exact pictures I wanted of this, but I did take a picture standing next to one, and it was taller than me with the flower stalk. And I just love this patch. I call it the grandfather mullein patch because it's just some of the biggest mullein plants I've ever come across. So it's always really nice to harvest from there. And that is mullein in its second year, right before it's shooting up its flower stalk. And then, I'm all over the place, excuse me. And then that is mullein in its first year when it's forming that Basil Rosette on the ground.
Oh, yes. I've actually, when I was walking, I've seen a lot more people having mullein, especially as like ornamental plants. We were walking past a school and they had some mullein plants. I was like, oh, wow, awesome. What was those pictures of the red clover? I'm being nosy.
Oh, I think it was just a tea that I had made.
Okay, cool.
I was taking pictures. Oh, what am I doing? Yeah, what am I doing? Oh, here we go. Okay. Share.
Okay.
Yeah, there was the red clover. I really like to make my herbal teas in a French press. A French press is commonly used for coffee, but I just find it so much easier when it comes to straining. Or, you could use a tea ball too, but if I'm making a larger batch, it's really nice to just be able to put my herbs in there, pour the water in, and then have it just be strained as I'm pouring it. That's always really nice. So
yeah, and I love also that it really helps you get everything out of it too by pressing it down. So that's
yeah.
really helpful too. All right, so let's go to our next one here. Cleavers.
Yay.
And you said you have cleavers as well?
Yes, I'm gonna have to really try to separate it, because as you know,
Right.
cleavers is a very sticky plant. It has these little like hooked hairs that just latch on to anything. That is not cleavers. So yeah, this is what I'm working with here. But I do have some pictures of cleavers as well. If I could get a nice stalk with the leaves that aren't crushed so much. But maybe that's. So I'm so excited that we decided to talk. You brought up talking about cleavers, because every year I feel like I miss the window to harvest it when it's at the best point to be harvested. Specifically when it's in its flowering period, that's when it is the best time to harvest for its medicinal properties. And I feel like I finally caught it this year. Now it did start going to seed a little bit, and the flowers are just so tiny. They're very hard to see. I'll probably be able to pull it up in a picture. But with cleavers, they can grow very tall. The little seeds, when they do form, they look like this, like two little balls. And then the leaves are in what's called a whorl pattern. So it kind of just like whirls around the stem. There are 8 leaflets. And what else? Yeah, the flowers are very small, white flowers with 4 pointed petals on them. And then, of course, one of my favorite ways to just identify cleavers is to see if it sticks. Whenever we're walking through the forest, I love to get my friends or even my daughter or my husband and just like throw cleavers at them. And it was so much better the first time I did it, when they weren't expecting it, and just throw it at them and it sticks and they're like, whoa. But my favorite thing to do with cleavers is make a crown. To just stick it right to my head. You don't have to weave any flowers together or anything like that.
Are you pulling up some pictures?
Yes, I'm gonna pull up some pictures, and then we can kind of.
Yeah. Do you see this picture? I tried to make a flower essence with the flowers. It was so horrible because the plant just kept sticking onto me and sticking on. I mean, it was so hard to do. But yeah, you can see a little bit of how small the flowers are. But yeah, that was really a fun experiment, to say the least. Oh, okay. I have a picture here.
Yeah, so it's kind of blurry now that I've zoomed in so much, but you can see. Oh, that one right here. I don't know if you could see my mouse. That one looks really good. So they're so tiny, but there's those 4 petals. And then really up close, wow, you can really see those little hairs that just latch on. And I'm going to really try to zoom in here, but you can kind of see that they're hooked there at the end. Let's see. So with cleavers, we'll get into the medicinal properties, obviously. But when you eat it fresh, it's obviously not very pleasant because of those hairs. But when you boil it or like heat it up, the hairs kind of dissipate and it's definitely more palatable. I personally just like to use it for tea for that lymphatic boost, or the boost for the lymphatic system. But also cleavers is in the same family as coffee. And the seeds of cleavers are often like roasted or ground up and used as a coffee substitute. And I thought that was really cool. And I believe, I'm not 100% positive about this, but I believe that there are small amounts of caffeine in the seeds as well. So let's see if I can get, so there's that whorl pattern with the 8 leaflets. This was a patch where it was just all kind of bent over and attaching itself onto the other plants. And then, oh, there's one of my cleaver's crowns. I feel like the queen of the forest when I wear my cleaver's crown. But yeah, those are the pictures. And I'm back. So I saw that you had up there, yes, demulcent, emollient, nutritive. There's just so many things with cleavers, and I feel like one of the best known uses for it in herbalism today is as a lymphatic tonic. It really it's another diuretic, like with red clover, so it kind of really helps get things flowing out, helps to remove toxins from the body. So the lymphatic system, I feel like it's not as well known as some of our other systems, but it's basically it's called the back alley of the circulatory system. So what it does is it cleans the blood for us, and it takes all of the waste product from our blood and just basically kind of filters it out of our body in whatever way it can. But cleavers is really great for kind of like helping that the lymph fluid kind of flowing. It's used to kind of break up stagnation in just helping to clear out the toxins. For me personally, I've had some issues with my tonsils around here. And I really did find cleavers to be helpful with that, kind of helping to get that stagnation moving out, bringing down some of the swelling with its anti-inflammatory properties. You have, salty, galactagogue, mild bitter. Yeah, it's definitely a very cooling herb like you have on there. But yeah, I just love cleavers. It's a fun one. I feel like it's a great spring tonic herb, when maybe our systems are a little stagnant from the winter time and we really just need to get things moving. That's another thing though, like if you are somebody who's really trying to get your lymphatic system running a little better, the best thing I found is just movement, is exercise, along with some of these lymphatic tonic herbs. Cleavers is one that I will mix with red clover. A while back, I found this supplement that contained red clover, cleavers, and burdock for lymphatic function. And I was taking it, I'm like, why am I not making something like this myself? I have cleavers, I have red clover. Now I just got to go find some burdock, which I never did. I just went with the cleavers and red clover. But yeah, those two I've seen used together quite a lot in herbal preparations. And because of that, I also use them together now.
I love chickweed and cleavers together. I think that those just go really well too, and they're similar. All three of those are really kind of similar, and some of their uses. And I like cleavers also for the skin, because it does have some vulnerary properties, and I like to use that. And chickweed for a rash or something like that, because it can even help with itching. So I really do like those two as an option. I put a lot of information here. I really just kind of copied and pasted from what do I want to say? Just like a little info kind of thing that I did about cleaver. So I did share a little bit more than I wanted to, but it is one of the better tasting herbs. It's really a mild tasting herb, and I think that it has a pretty good taste. And so also that cleavers is best when it's fresh. Like cleavers, chickweed, those are best when fresh. But I did show a little bit of some dried cleavers that I have. But those are one of the plants that I say definitely do fresh. Okay.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And chickweed and they do kind of, the flavor does kind of remind me of each other. I can see that.
Yeah. Okay, and the next one, wild lettuce. And we can actually stop it here if you want to, because we are kind of running a little bit on the time. I wanted to get a little
Yeah.
bit better pictures here, but I was just kind of rushing here with wild lettuce. So you don't
So
have
I
any.
wasn't able to send over the pictures. No. I have these pictures. They, for some reason, they weren't sending. I don't know if this is even gonna work, but
Oh, let me
I
make
mean,
you
it's
bigger. One
you
second.
can kind of. That's the prickly lettuce.
Okay, good. Yeah, we can see
Yeah,
there.
and then it. They always have. They always seem to have those distinct. I can't get it, but yeah. But the leaves are always. You can really pick them out. I feel like when you see them, and there's so many different species of wild lettuce. But I know that for herbal medicine, they're mainly used for pain relief. And see, I'm not as experienced with wild lettuce, so I'm just going to give that little disclaimer right there. So I definitely encourage you guys to look into it. But I believe that it has some of the same properties as opiates, and but without the side effects and without the drowsiness. But it has some of the same pain relieving properties that opiates do. So a lot of people will use it for pain, and it's the white sticky sap within the plant that does it. Like I said, I've never made any preparations from it myself, and it's something I do plan on doing, but I feel like I just don't have as much information as I'd like to give for this one. So I'm going to hand it over to you, and we'll go from there.
Yes, and so actually, I didn't. The reason why I didn't have this plant is because I'm waiting so that I can harvest it. Because I was reading that it's best to wait until it actually flowers to harvest it, and so that's what I'm waiting. You can see how thick the stem is, hopefully, and
Yeah.
how pigmented it is right here on this picture. I don't know. Actually, let me do this right here in this picture. And it is in the lettuce family. It's known as opium lettuce, I want to say is the name of it, because like you said, of the properties. And so, yeah, so when I'm harvesting it, I'm going to harvest it, and you want to start and take little bits at a time to really get that sap out. So you don't want to take the whole plant. You just want to make little cuts. And so that's what I'm going to do. And you can actually boil that down, and that's going to be the most concentrated for pain relief. I do also have, and it's not thought to be like a dried wild lettuce is not thought to be as potent, but I do have it here, and so I'll show some of it. So I do believe that it would have, and it's also used for its sedative properties as well. So sedative is just like to sedate you, to just calm you. Let me show it. But yeah, but that's mostly, oops, I'm spilling it. That's mostly what it is used for. And yeah, and it is in that lettuce family. And even, like dandelion does have sap as well. But yeah, this is a plant that you do want to be careful with, and it's more of a lower dosage than some of the other ones like the cleavers or something else that we were talking about. Oh, and speaking of cleavers, and I forgot, I wanted to show my cleavers, and the reason why is because we are so far, how even just one zone, I would say, like apart, and like we're so far in the season. So when I went to get my cleavers, I was actually sad. Look at my cleavers. It's all yellow and dried up. But yeah, but you can see the seeds as well. And they even got on my gloves. And so that's what the point is, the for the seeds to they cling on to anyone and anything, and they drop all over, and that's how the plant can really spread. But it's just so funny how mine is gone now.
Yeah. I feel like that's usually the point where I'd finally find it. And we have some growing around the house, but every time I find it growing near the house, there's poison ivy right next to it.
Oh,
And
really?
so I really, to really find some good cleavers that I can actually harvest, I have to go out into the woods for that one. But
Yeah.
yeah.
And I didn't talk about the flower essence, but you know that clinginess is thought to be good for bonding. And so, with having a flower essence, if you get just a little flowers and you just let them sit out, um, and in the sun naturally, try not to touch it or anything, and so it's supposed to be thought to be like a nice little medicine. I won't get into how to make the flower essence, but it's used for that reason. And I just, I think that's just so wonderful too, about how the plant just kind of tells you about the type of person it's for, the people with like
Yeah.
attachment issues. So wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. And speaking about that, I heard from an herbalist before that, you think of cleavers and how it kind of has these little bristly hairs and they attach onto things. It's like, think about that for your lymphatic system. It's kind of like attaching on to all the
Oh,
waste and kind of helping it to move out like little bristles. And I thought that was a really cool
I
way
love
that the
that.
specific herbalist put it. I can't remember who it was. I feel like there's so many different wonderful herbalists that
Right.
I draw wisdom from, but that, yeah. So
Awesome. Yeah, no, I love that.
mhm.
So I guess we can, if you want to do one more, or we can end it here.
Okay. I wanted to see if there were any questions
Yeah,
that we ever.
so since we are getting ready to finish up, you guys can leave any questions that you may have. And I do thank you for reminding me. I do want to talk about, if anyone is in the nearby area, how could they get some of the plants or things that your farm sells?
Right. So we right now we're actually wrapping up our spring um, plant sale. This is our last weekend for it. But in the springtime, we do sell plant starts for different types of vegetables, usually tomatoes, peppers. We do cucumber starts, squash, a whole variety of different vegetable starts, and some different herb starts as well. Um, they're grown in all organic soil, and we're not certified organic, but we practice organic growing practices. So if anybody's interested in the future, if you're kind of local to Pennsylvania, you can email me at smallseedsfarm@gmail.com. Even if you just have any questions or yeah, I'd love to have an online shop at one point, but we'll see where that goes. But for
Yeah.
now, yeah, just email smallseedsfarm@gmail.com. We'll probably be selling vegetables. We're going to have a little plant, or we have a plant stand on the corner of where we are, and then we'll be selling produce this year at the stand as well. And hopefully in the future, just kind of have a full scale, fully functioning organic / permaculture farm. But yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, doesn't look like we have any questions.
All right.
But do want to remind everybody that you can actually, if you're in this chat, in the pinned comment, I do have a link to our channel. You can find her at Small Seeds. Yeah, just Small Seeds. And I do have the link in the description as well. Do you want to add anything else before we go?
Um, yeah, I guess I'll just talk a little bit about the content on the channel. Up to
Sure.
this point, it's basically been wild edibles, wild medicinal plants, crafting your own herbal remedies at home. This year, we're definitely going to be getting out into our gardens more. I feel like I'm finally ready to do that, maybe do some garden tours. Um, and I'm not going to stop talking about wild plants either and foraging. I do have some plans to make some more educational videos on plant identification and different botanical terms for parts of plants, uh, how to identify and the terms for different leaf shapes. And then I also want to go into a little, either a video or a series about talking about different herbal actions and the terms that are always thrown around by herbalists, or like antiseptic or menagogue, for example, and just different terms like that, really just kind of simplifying them and defining them to make it easier and more digestible for people like me, really, and like us. So yeah, those are just some little things I've been starting when it comes to videos. But yeah,
Awesome.
Thank you, Katia, for having me on here. And
thank you for coming, not once but twice, and giving us so much wonderful information and sharing so much new insights for all of us. So I really appreciate it.
I feel like I always learn so much when I'm talking with you as well. So.
And Ever Washington says, love my herbal people making big moves. So yes, I do want to congratulate you for all the things that you have going on. And I look forward, and I'll be watching all of the videos that you will have to share with us. It sounds really exciting as well. It doesn't look like we have any more comments, so we're going to go ahead and end it here. But this will be the last time you see Madalyn over here in some kind of way.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping that we could get you on my channel here soon.
Oh, I'd love to. I'd love to.
Yeah, so thank you so much.
Yes, and make sure you guys go over and check out her channel and hit the like button on your way out and share it with someone that really, would be interested in all of this information. So I'm going to go ahead, and we're going to see you guys soon in the future. Oh, question. When are you guys doing this again?
Well, that's up to you.
We're working on it.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely do plan on having you on the channel. So that's all I'll say. We're going to talk about your amazing book that you've just come out with, and maybe make something together if that's.
And you know what? I'll give them a chance to tell us, what would you guys like to see? I do want to talk about, she did share not one, but she shared 2 recipes in the book. So she is featured in there, and I want to show her recipes. So she has her wild violet syrup, and look at the beautiful pictures that she shared. And it's all a testament to the wonderful content that she has on her channel. So she had the wild violet syrup, and then she had, the self-heal salve. Wonderful, beautiful photos that she shared, and wonderful recipes as well. Me and my daughter really enjoyed making her syrup as well. So I'll have links to the book as well. And I'm just so glad that she was one of our contributors, and she's right here. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And thank you again for that.
Yeah. So if you guys let us know what you want to see in the chat, it'll still be open for a little bit, and we'll see you guys soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.